Is the new Fantastic Four movie already doomed to fail? Every time Marvel announces a new version of these characters, the reaction is always the same. Because if there's one true curse in superhero cinema, it's this. The Fantastic Four have never had a single successful movie. Doesn't matter if the budget's massive, if the cast is full of big names, or if the director's the new golden boy in town. Hollywood has spent decades trying to figure out how to make them work, and every time it ends in a mess. So, what keeps going wrong? Why does this franchise feel like a ticking time bomb? And here's the big question. Can this new Fantastic Four finally break the curse? To see why the 2025 movie might be in danger, we need to go back and revisit every version that came before. Get ready for a wild ride full of broken dreams, canceled projects, and choices that still make no sense. Long before Marvel Studios became the blockbuster machine we know today, the Fantastic Four had already started their rough journey through Hollywood. The first real attempt came in 1994 with a movie directed by Roger Corman, a filmmaker famous for his low-budget films and his unusual way of doing things. This version was filmed in secret and in a rush for one simple reason: to stop the studio from losing the movie rights to the comic. Corman had to turn in something, anything, to keep the license. That's how a movie came to life that was never meant to be shown in theaters, or even on TV. The budget was barely $1 million, an absurdly low number even for that time. The script was rewritten as they went, the costumes kept falling apart, and the special effects were so rough, they actually freaked out the cast. Filming lasted only a few weeks. And even though the crew thought they were making a real movie, the producers knew from day one that it was never going to be released. The final product was so strange it only spread through pirated copies, turning into an urban legend among fans. Even today, it's still seen as a cult classic by many, mostly because it's so bad, it's actually funny. This experiment ended up setting a precedent, without even meaning to. With the Fantastic Four, nothing was ever going to be easy. The movie stayed in limbo, and the rights remained with the same studio, which made it impossible to do anything better for a long time. After Roger Corman's hidden version, it felt like the Fantastic Four were never going to make it to the big screen in a serious way. But in the early 2000s, things started to shift. After the box office success of Spider-Man and X-Men, Fox thought the time had come to bring the Fantastic Four into the spotlight, this time with a real budget and a cast full of big names. Still, there was a lot of doubt in the air. It's important to remember that, at the time, Marvel still wasn't the giant it is today. There was no cinematic universe, no post-credit scenes, and every superhero movie was a risk. It could turn out great or crash and burn. With the Fantastic Four, the expectation was clear. This had to work. The director they chose was Tim Story, who had worked on comedies like Barbershop, and up to that point, had zero experience with action movies or big-budget productions. Still, 20th Century Fox gave him one of the most important titles in the Marvel world. The budget was set at $100 million. Marvel's first family was now played by Ioan Gruffudd, Jessica Alba, Michael Chiklis, and a young Chris Evans, years before he picked up the Captain America shield. Things seemed a lot more hopeful, but right from the start, the production was a mess. Jessica Alba was chosen after a direct push from Fox executives, who wanted an actress with international fame to help sell the movie in global markets. But both Story and the writers felt she didn't match the original comic book character, and the tension started even before filming began. Alba, on her side, had several arguments with the director, and later admitted that the experience was so bad she almost walked away from acting for good. While the chemistry between the actors kept getting worse, the studio pushed the director to keep things light, with lots of visual effects and jokes, while the creative team was trying to make something closer to the original comic. That clash led to a story that felt too childish for adults, too dark at times for younger viewers, and a villain who ended up being nothing like the character from the comics. When Fantastic Four was finally released, it opened in first place at the US box office, earning $56 million in its opening weekend. It ended up making a little over $330 million worldwide. Not a bad number, but still far from the kind of impact they were hoping for. The reviews were brutal. The New York Times called it a soulless cartoon. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a score of just 28%, and while it wasn't a box office flop, it wasn't a real success either. Fantastic Four had checked the boxes, but didn't win anyone over. Still, the studio still believed they could turn things around, and 2 years later, they decided to try again. The problem? What came next was even worse. In 2007, Fox decided to push ahead with a sequel. The title said it all: Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. This time, the big draw was the arrival of the most visually impressive character in the Marvel Universe. But once again, everything went wrong. To begin with, the script kept getting rewritten right in the middle of filming. The ending changed so many times that the creative team was sick of it. The studio wanted to keep the door open for a Silver Surfer spin-off, but without committing to a clear story, leading to confusion and tension on set. At the same time, the problems behind the scenes got even worse. Alba and Story's relationship didn't get any better. The director kept telling her not to make expressions that looked too human because they ruined the shot, and she fired back that she wasn't a doll. By the time filming wrapped, her relationship with the studio and the director was completely broken. Fox, for their part, started to lose control of the project. The pressure to release the movie quickly, sell action figures, and keep international investors happy ended up falling apart. The result was a sequel with no soul and no clear direction. At the box office, the movie made $289 million, almost $50 million less than the one before. And even though it was still profitable, the message was clear. The audience just wasn't interested anymore. The whole thing had lost its meaning. The critics tore it apart. Some tried to highlight the Silver Surfer's visual design, but no one could ignore that the series had become a broken brand. Plans for a third movie and a Silver Surfer spin-off were quietly canceled, and the Fantastic Four were sent back, once again, to the shelf of characters Hollywood just couldn't figure out. What the audience didn't know back then was that the biggest failure was still coming, and that the next attempt wouldn't just let people down. It would leave a mark on the franchise that couldn't be erased. In 2015, Fox gave it another shot, this time with a completely different approach. The goal was to move away from the family tone of the earlier movies and offer a version of the Fantastic Four that felt darker, more serious, and more up-to-date. To lead the project, they picked Josh Trank, who had just gotten praise for his first film, Chronicle, a story about superpowers told from a more personal and realistic angle. But what started as a bold idea quickly turned into one of the most chaotic shoots of the decade. Trank had a clear vision as a director, a sci-fi movie with elements of body horror, inspired by films like The Fly and Interstellar. The cast was strong too. Miles Teller, Kate Mara, Michael B. Jordan, and Jamie Bell, all of them with backgrounds in indie films and solid reviews from critics. The studio thought they had the next generation of superheroes on their hands, but none of it went the way they planned. From the start, the production was shaped by conflict. Fox and Trank had completely different visions for the project. While the director wanted something atmospheric, slow-paced, and dramatic, the studio pushed for a more accessible story, with big action scenes and franchise potential. As filming went on, the tension kept building until it became impossible to manage. Trank started getting pushed out of key decisions. Large parts of the script were rewritten during production. Entire scenes were cut, and major reshoots were done without his direct involvement. The director, more and more isolated from the process, was eventually removed from the final cut altogether. The result was a messy, broken movie with no real identity. You can tell there are two ideas fighting each other on screen. A more personal, director-driven vision in the first half, and a bunch of studio decisions forced into the second. There are characters who show up without any development, conflicts that disappear without any resolution, and a story that feels like it was taken apart and put back together under pressure. The final runtime was just 100 minutes, unusually short for a big-budget superhero movie, and several moments shown in the trailer never made it into the final cut. In the end, it was a failure on every level. With a budget of around $120 million, Fantastic Four made only $167 million worldwide, a disappointing number even before counting marketing costs. By the second weekend, ticket sales had dropped more than 70%, a clear sign that audiences had completely checked out. The critics didn't hold back. Reviews called the film confusing, unfinished, and flat. Trade outlets openly talked about the collapse of the production and the industrial disaster behind its release. A few days after the movie came out, Josh Trank posted and then deleted a tweet where he said that his version of the film was completely different and way better than what had been released. It was a public confirmation of something people in the industry had already been saying. The movie had been taken apart by the studio from the inside. The sequel, which had been announced even before the movie was released, was quietly canceled without any explanation. The franchise was put back on the shelf, this time with no return date, and Fantastic Four became one of the most well-known failures in modern superhero movies. Not just because of what ended up on screen, but because of the chaos surrounding it from day one. After that movie, there were no doubts left. Something about this franchise just didn't work, and maybe it never had. The studio gave up on any sequel plans, and for years, the Fantastic Four became a symbol of wasted potential. But now, with Marvel Studios in control, things finally seem different. Could 2025 be the year they finally break the curse? After 3 failed tries in theaters, the Fantastic Four were seen as a cursed franchise. For years, Fox stayed away from any new project connected to them. But everything changed in 2019 when Disney bought 20th Century Fox and got back the movie rights to several Marvel characters. For the first time in decades, the Fantastic Four were back under Marvel Studios. The excitement didn't take long to show up. Kevin Feige, head of Marvel Studios, confirmed that the team would have a place in the MCU. But unlike other announcements, this one kept getting delayed. It seemed clear the studio knew it couldn't afford to mess this up again. It wasn't until 2023 that the new movie was officially confirmed. This time, the cast seems to have strong chemistry. Pedro Pascal will play Mr. Fantastic, Joseph Quinn will take on Human Torch, Vanessa Kirby will play Invisible Woman, and Ebon Moss-Bachrach will be the Thing. Also, Silver Surfer will appear again, this time played by Julia Garner. Another good sign is that the director is Matt Shakman, someone with real experience in superhero and action projects. Even though this is his first feature film, he's already worked in TV on some major shows, including WandaVision, which he produced and directed. He also directed episodes of The Great, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Fargo, and Game of Thrones, among others. Another moment that got fans excited was when Marvel Studios shared the first promo image for the project. A shot with a strong retro-futuristic look, inspired by 1960s science fiction. Even though Marvel Studios is still moving forward, things aren't like they were 10 years ago. The studio is going through a tough time. Audiences are getting tired, people are criticizing the quality of recent projects, and the shared universe feels more and more scattered. In that context, the new Fantastic Four isn't just another movie, it's a big risk. By this point in the video, the question's hard to avoid. Why is it so difficult to bring the Fantastic Four to the big screen? In the comics, the Fantastic Four weren't just important, they were the beginning. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created them in 1961, and with that, the modern Marvel universe was born. Before Spider-Man, before the X-Men, before anyone else, they came first. And they weren't your typical superheroes. They were scientists, explorers, adventurers, but more than anything, they were heroes with real, messy problems. Arguments between couples, sometimes crossing the line into abuse, big egos, personal drama. They were anything but perfect, a dysfunctional family in every way. And that's exactly what made them work so well on the page. These days, it's hard to picture a big studio faithfully adapting a character as complicated as Mr. Fantastic. If they decide to show that side of him, they risk upsetting a big part of the audience. And truth is, Marvel already made it clear they're not willing to cross that line when they adapted Doctor Strange. But if they avoid it completely, the movie could end up feeling too safe. And that might not sit well with today's audiences, who've already seen it all when it comes to superhero movies and are tired of the same stories and characters. Sure, there have been a few films that dared to show a more human, more painful side of this genre, like Logan or Joker, but I really doubt Marvel Studios is ready to go that far. Then again, who knows? If they had the guts to keep Deadpool around, maybe they'll be bold enough to take a bigger risk with this franchise too. The Fantastic Four were Marvel's first superheroes, and yet they've never had a movie that matched the weight of their legacy. They've been through secret productions, off-track comedies, failed sequels, and reboots that fell apart from the inside. Each attempt left another scar. Now, with Marvel Studios leading the way, there's reason to get excited, but also plenty of reason to stay cautious. If this story teaches us anything, it's that nothing is sure, and living up to the name of the comic isn't just a promise. It's a debt the movies still haven't paid. What do you think? Will Fantastic Four First Steps finally break the curse, or will it be one more nail in the coffin? Tell me what you think in the comments.